So hello, today we're at St Nicholas's Church in Little Wigborough in Essex and going to talk to you about the history of the church and the village itself. So Little Wigborough is a village in Essex. It's 1 mile from Great Wigborough and 1.6 miles from Peldon. The village is surrounded by farmland to marshland which slopes towards the Blackwater Estuary. The elevation here is 12 metres or 39 feet in old money. Today's population is around 50. Little Wigborough's history has always been connected to that of the Blackwater Estuary, which lies close by. Now we have reached the Saltings and the Blackwater Estuary, which is just ahead of us. The rich salt water was boiled down into salt flakes in locally formed red hills which run all along the estuary's saltings here on the Blackwater. Our ancient Neolithic and Iron Age ancestors would have set fish traps here and harvested oysters even before the Romans landed. In 1985, archaeologists surveyed the marshland off Copt Hall Creek, where we stand now, and found Roman pottery used in the production of salt from around 43 AD, in the time of Emperor Claudius. It makes me wonder what else lies beneath these saltings. Little Wigborough and the Saxons. During 1066, Little Wigborough was part of Great Wigborough, just up on the hill from where we are now. The settlement was large and made up of 5 manors ruled by 5 thanes. Now up on the hill was the capital manor, and it was owned by Barking Abbey and its abbess, Avgiva. Avgiva also owned the rights to over 6 salt houses, which must have been set here in Little Wigborough's Creek. And you may have heard my voice has changed because I've got hay fever. But I shall carry on. What beautiful vistas we have today, and what lovely weather. For the past week we've had literally up to 30 degrees. Now we know in 1066, we know that Gott was the thane here, the Saxon. And we know by 1086, Mamo Diaper, or Dapifer, sorry, was lord of the manor here where Copt Hall stands today. Now Mamo was a royal steward to William the Conqueror, owning manors in both Kent and Essex, and would go on to serve many monarchs. His last signature was scribed in the reign or nearabouts of Henry I in 1099. Oh, I've recovered quickly from the hay fever, which is good news. Now we look upon Copt Hall. Old in its own right, but go way back and a Saxon manor would have stood here. Being a fortified farmhouse with arrow-slit windows, the smell of smoke rising from its roof, the sound of village life, all but gone, but you can look back at some of the noble families who would have owned this very manor. Hello there. First off we have Sir Robert Sepvans, a medieval knight who in 1271 went on a crusade with the Black Prince. Now Sir Robert would become constable to Rochester Castle, and his descendants would live here until 1364. Soon after we have Sir Walter Lee, who would represent Essex in Parliament and live here from 1376. He was an experienced soldier who would witness the Peasants' Revolt of 1381, and in 1385 would fight alongside Richard II in Scotland. We even know that Sir Walter took 6 squires, 6 men-at-arms and 8 archers with him. Perhaps they even stood where I stand right now. Sir Walter would become constable of Colchester's Castle. I've found this sign which is of interest. I must say this village has got a thing with signs. It's a shame that the Wigborough sign itself is missing on the entrance. I wonder what it would look like. Now this map on the sign gives routes of access. And you can see you've got Copt Hall here, and then you've got a lane running down here. And you can see the creek here. And you can see the Red Hills. So you can use this as a way of finding your way around. Look at all the Red Hills, unbelievable. hope you can hear me okay because of the wind, but it's not a bad view, is it? So now I'm going to talk to you about the marsh wives of Little Wigborough. So in the year 1600 it was written so: in the marshy parts of Essex, the farmers are said to drive a sort of trade in wives, by going to the inland parts of the county to marry and bring in their wives home into the fens. They know the change of air, so much for the worse, in a short time dispatch them. It is said that Sam boasted of having a pleasant variety of half a score wives, and the comfortable enjoyment of so many fortunes. And I bet they did. So put it simply, that the farmers of the area would get themselves a wife, they would come back here and she would die literally within months, or get very ill of an illness which they didn't understand. Today we simply call it malaria, and it ran all the way up the Thames Estuary and the Essex marshes. What's the old saying? Mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun, but not sheep. Now we've made our way to St Nicholas's Church itself, and we're going to talk about the great earthquake of 1884. At 9:20 in the morning of April the 22nd of that year, a great shaking and swaying of the ground struck here in Little Wigborough. Chimneys came crashing through roofs, and the church tower separated from the body of the church. The earthquake was so great it ran from Colchester and was felt in France. A special mention must go to the Reverend Frederick Theobald, the parish priest at the time, for he and his family would donate most to St Nicholas's restoration and renovations, which were completed in 1888. Zeppelin landing in Little Wigborough. Perhaps the strangest tale of them all is the most recent, for high above, German captain Alois Bocker frantically steered a super Zeppelin codenamed L33. On the night of the 24th of September 1916, L33 was hit by gunfire over London, and Captain Bocker would bring her down right here on Copthall Lane in Little Wigborough. By the latest technology, I bring you this picture, and you can see the farmhouse in the background. If you look on my left hand side, you can make out a guy on the ladder and the soldiers standing on the very field we look upon now. Now amazingly, all 22 crew survived the crash landing. Captain Bocker knocked on the door to the cottages right here where we stand, for he was about to torch the top secret Zeppelin. We can look at a picture of it. So yesterday I got this picture made. Look at that, isn't that incredible? You see the wreckage crossing the lane here. Just in case we didn't get a good view from the other location. Captain Bocker and his crew then threw their weapons and marched on up this lane where we stand. It's believed they threw them somewhere up here. It was now 1:30 on a Sunday morning, and coming the other way, more or less where we stand, was Special Constable Edgar Nichols, who was on his bike. Constable Nichols said, "And where are you going?" And Captain Bocker replied, "We are on a special mission." And in perfect English, the captain asked, "Can you tell me how to get to the docks?" "Never you mind about docks, you just come along with me." Now, to cut a long story short, Captain Bocker and his crew would surrender, and they were marched off to nearby Peldon, where we stand now. Now, during the same night, a mother gave birth to a baby girl and named her Zeppelina. Now we are at Copt Hall, and we are going to visit St Nicholas's Church, but please be aware you must go through a private grounds of Copt Hall, so be respectful of that. Now, if you wish to visit and see an exhibit from the crashed L33, you can do so by visiting the church at Great Wigborough, which is open every Wednesday from 12 till 4. But check online before you come down. Now we look upon St Nicholas's Church itself. The walls are stone rubble and roughly caused with limestone dressings. The whole building, the nave, the chancel and the west tower, was built around the 15th century. And at last we're out of that wind, which makes a change. So you will notice it's rather overgrown here, and I will explain why in a second. Just be careful, we've got bees. So we begin with the West Tower, which is built in 3 stages and measures 7 feet by 6 feet, so it's quite a small one. The tower was rebuilt in 1888 due to the catastrophic earthquake of 1884. And we can clearly see the Victorian renovations, and we can also see gargoyles on the corners. Now you can see the water spouts come out of their mouths, and these originate from France. I believe off the top of my head around the 1300s they became fashionable, and they're designed to first of all ward off evil spirits and get water from the roof. Now, due to the extreme weather conditions of 2017, subsidence caused massive cracks and separation in the southwest buttress, which we can see here. The floor inside has sunk and raised in other places, and I'm afraid this church has been closed ever since. Now we look upon the nave, which measures 28 feet by 17 feet, and it's 15th century. Now we cannot enter the church due to its structurally unsound. But if we can imagine, on the floor in the nave we have an Isaac Mazengarb of 1698 and his wife Mary of 1714. Now when I looked up the year 1714, King George I is crowned in Westminster's Abbey. But he was very unpopular, and 20 towns in England would riot over his crowning, the coronation. From the south side you can see the buttress, the crack. Now we're going to talk about the chancel. So the chancel measures 16 feet by 17 feet and it's also 15th century. We can just make out the south doorway. Now this doorway is described as a double hollow chamfered set of jambs and 4 centred arch with modern square head. And just look at these roses. Without a doubt these were planted by a relative and much cherished. Beautiful scent. Now inside we have the roof, which has got the original 15th century moulded tie beams and curved braces which survived the earthquake of 1884. Now we stand upon the north side and the east end of the chancel. If you just look through the window we can make out the pews, and the rood screen I guess separates the chancel. We can make out the font in the background. And we're now just looking at the window on the south side from the chancel. So we're still on the north side, but I want to show you the north door. Now this is described as being an angel. It's most unusual red coloured stone. I've not seen it before in a church. You could just make out face there. And here we have the boot scraper. This is probably repaired after the earthquake. It's really unusual because it's got a big iron grill on it. Oh, got my fingers stuck. Ouch. That's my own fault. Right, look at that. And there's your iron strap hinge. Now sometimes you can make out a cross. I think that might be something there. So that again was designed to ward off evil spirits. So we'll shut this door up. Look at the old... It's fascinating, isn't it? I just wonder what's going to happen with this church. And here we have a last notice. Safeguarding, promoting a safer church, 2019. So from this angle I can see repairs, I would say, from the Victorian period, from the earthquake that ran up here from the doorway up, because it said the tower separated. Can you see that? Okay, now we're going to look at a very interesting headstone. So we shall walk through the undergrowth. I still think I'm doing quite well with this hay fever. I had it as a child for a long time, and then as an adolescent, a young man, really bad, and I just sort of overcome it, and now I'm more or less okay with it. But every now and then you'll get a little bout. Again, look at the rose bushes. Beautiful colours and scent. Okay, onwards. Now, this headstone I really wanted to mention. For this is of Alfred Wright, who on the night of the Zeppelin crash jumped on his motorbike to warn the authorities. Alfred sadly hit a car on his motorbike and would die of wounds 7 weeks later. So if I read what it says, in love in memory of Alfred John, son of John and Emma Wright, who died November 13th, 1916, aged 45 years, from injuries received whilst on his way to inform military guard of the fall of Zeppelin L33 in this parish, September 24th, 1916. And although many people did die from bombs, etc., that were dropped by the Zeppelins during World War One, I guess John here would be the only, or Alfred would be the only person to die in such a way, connection with a Zeppelin. So in 2020 at the parish council meeting, it was proposed to transfer St Nicholas's Church to the Diocese of Chelmsford, and I believe that's taken place. I cannot tell you St Nicholas's future. St Nicholas, I understand, is the patron saint of seamen, so you can see how it would affect this village. But it is always sad to see such a grand old building, so perhaps in the future a family will make this building their home, who knows. So I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you very much.